What do the NPCs in Marvel's Spider-Man 2 even do? That's a question that I asked myself while swinging above New York City after 100%ing the game in like 20 hours. Obviously, Insomniac Games needed to populate the area with a bunch of fake people because otherwise it does not feel like New York and therefore you do not feel like Spider-Man. But I wanted to see what these little guys are up to while I'm off Spider-Manning all over the place and saving the day. Also, hi, my name is fricking Nick and I take unserious details in video games way too seriously. If that interests you, then stick around. To find out what makes an NPC tick in Spider-Man 2, I decided that I would first pick a random civilian in the financial district and just follow them around, see what his deal is. And let me tell you, this light stalking session changed my life. More on that later. I didn't expect the NPCs to be as sophisticated as, say, Red Dead Redemption 2's because they give entire lives, routines, jobs, and sometimes even affairs to these characters. Because even though both Red Dead Redemption 2 and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 had roughly $300 million budgets, Rockstar put most of that budget into making the on-the-ground details feel believable, since the story is about one man coming to grips with his mortality and weighing his impact on society around him. Spider-Man 2, on the other hand, put that budget into licensing fees and spectacle. It's a game where you are a god and the mortals are typically 500 feet below you. So the millions of New Yorkers are essentially blades of grass on a lawn. They're there to have something to look at. They don't really do anything, but it would look really weird if they weren't there. So anyway, if this man was freaking out about how Spider-Man number 2 was following him at a pretty conspicuous distance, he didn't show it. He just trudged along the financial district. But then I got distracted by some weird phenomenon. You might have seen it earlier if you were paying attention, but here it is again. For some reason, pedestrians going in and out of this door hit some weird invisible staircase. You, the player, are unable to interact with this invisible walkway. I was so distracted by this that I almost forgot that I had a guy I was supposed to be following. So I quickly ran to catch up to the guy, only to find yet another invisible elevated walkway on the same city block. Since this entire block is taken up by the Heart Clinic, and that is a fictional clinic owned by Marvel, my guess is that early on in development, either the Heart Clinic looked vastly different from what it does now, with steps leading up to the doors, or they had a different building entirely that was here, and they replaced it with the Heart Clinic, and either they didn't notice this bug, or they tried to fix this bug, and it broke the game, so they left it as is. Spider-Man 2's map isn't exactly one-to-one with our New York City, so this specific intersection doesn't exist in real life. So while we may never know what was originally here, we will always have this remnant of these invisible stairs because they are absolutely done supporting this game by now. At this point, I no longer gave a f*** about the guy I was supposed to be following. I had just found out that civilians could levitate, and I had to find other weird cases of NPC behavior. I figured the best place to start would be the Coney Island Fairgrounds, so I charted a course and set off with the exaggerated swagger of a black. With the help of my trusty cat, I started scouting out Coney Island looking for weirdos. Then something hit me. And then I realized something. The people here don't ever get on or off of the rides and the lines never move. I sat there for about 20 minutes watching the rides and none of the rides ever stopped. And while I personally can think of no hell worse than being stuck on an amusement ride for all of eternity, they seem to be doing pretty good. Another mildly interesting thing is that the go-karts have really odd collision with Spider-Man. You just kind of slide over them. And the track is in some severe state of disrepair, yet they still ride on it. I'm fairly certain that the joke here is that the fairground should probably be shut down for safety reasons, but hasn't. Also, there's no collision with this rubble that's on the track. I think that's kind of neat. My final stop on my Coney Island adventure was the arcade. Here there are two people that are playing air hockey. And when I walked in, one player immediately scored and they had this exchange.
I thought you said you weren't any good.
I thought you said you go easy on me.
And then they continued to play and not a single other goal was scored. I wonder if I had witnessed like Halley's Comet and they only scored once every 70 years or whatever. But then I noticed that it was actually a loop, their gameplay, and that the guy scoring on his friend is a trigger event that's based on whenever you approach them.
I thought you said you weren't any good.
I thought you said you go...
I thought you said you weren't any good.
I thought you said you...
After leaving the amusement park, I decided the next best place would be to check the beach. right next to Coney Island. All I really found there were some fully clothed sunbathers, a guy that was sunk shin deep in the sand playing frisbee and the frisbee just went straight through my body, and 3 fully stocked but completely abandoned pretzel stands. Also, there's a weird invisible island that appears out of nowhere off the coast, but it's out of bounds and the game forces you to turn around before you can get to it. My guess is this was originally made to test certain things out in programming, or maybe it's where like a certain mission takes place. I'm not too sure. I didn't know where to put this in the video, but it is very important to me, so I did want to talk about it. I found a window in which they forgot to put any textures on, and so therefore you were able to see completely into the building, and here's a look at that. I just think it's kind of neat how it's a completely empty box because it's not something you're supposed to be able to look inside, but you can because somebody forgot and they're never gonna patch this. Cause say it with me, they are done supporting this game. Central Park was the next place that I wanted to go to look for odd civilian behavior. There I encountered a bug that made it so only a handful of NPCs were spawning, and this persisted across the entire map until I reloaded my last checkpoint. I don't know for sure what caused this bug to happen. My guess is that all the NPCs were spawned in a place where I had previously been. I kind of liked it. It gave a little eerie vibe to all of New York. Probably what would actually happen in New York City if they were assaulted by a bunch of aliens and hunters. And actually, I don't know. I think New Yorkers are built different. They'd probably still be out on the streets. But after I remedied this bug, I went back to Central Park and I found this lovey-dovey couple.
So beautiful.
Thank you. I don't even feel cold anymore.
This is nice. Where'd you tell your mom you were?
I said I was at Cheryl's.
Don't want you to get in trouble
I
again.
know.
Then about 50 feet away was a different couple saying the exact same thing.
This is nice.
The second couple was pretty funny because even though they're talking about the girl lying to her parents and sneaking out to meet her boyfriend, she looks like she remembers where she was when the Challenger exploded, and he looks like he's not old enough to remember where he was when the towers fell. Another fun thing I found in this area was an NPC who shit his pants.
We gotta find a bathroom quickly.
We
That
could
lavender
use someone
lucky
with your
passed
moves
right
in our
through
theater
me.
collective.
Check the bottom drawer. Are you sure? Did you actually check?
like
Because
me?
it seems like you
Or is he
answered
just
too
playing
fast.
Aside from that, I found Central Park a little lacking as far as like silly NPC behavior goes. But what I did notice is that all of the baseball diamonds in this game are positioned in such a way that you can't play on 2 of them at the same time because they overlap and you're going to be hitting the other team's third baseman if you just hit it down the line. Hell, you can't even play on this diamond because there's a building in the way. But that's actually pretty okay because it seems like all of the residents of New York in the universe of Spider-Man 2 are very sedentary beings who do not play sports. Every single court, diamond, field, pitch, whatever, was not being used in the conventional way. People were just loitering on the courts and leaving their balls out. At this point, I figured me and my pussycat would do what I had planned to do all along. Stalk somebody. And I did so in Times Square because that's one of the most iconic locations in New York City. I figured with this being a busy location and a lot of civilians, I'd probably find a few bugs and things of interest here and there. And I did. I found out that for the most part, pedestrians loosely obey traffic lights, and they speed up when the light's about to turn red, which is a kind of cute detail. I also found out that there's always an NPC clipping between these 2 garbage cans, hailing a taxi that's not even there. And I found out that most of the cars just don't even move north and south on Times Square. They're like perpetually stuck in traffic. But what I learned while stalking Rufus, that's what I'm calling him, he gives me a lot of Rufus vibes, it kind of helped me see a little more about how dumb the civilian AI is in Spider-Man 2. Rufus, despite being dressed like a man with a job, exhibited clear, I'm unemployed but need to look busy behavior. He didn't seem to have a set destination, he would frequently double back, even in the middle of an intersection, and at one point he went in to see a Broadway play only to immediately exit the building. I do understand that that might be something that somebody does when they're afraid of a superhero following them, but every time he turned around, I made myself invisible. But yeah, Rufus had no patrol path or even really a base of operations. If you were to make me guess on how they program this AI to work, I would say that Rufus is programmed to kind of meander around Spider-Man's location until Spider-Man exceeds a distance from him, at which point Rufus deactivates and another civilian close to Spider-Man takes his place. Because he never returned to where I first found him, but he did kind of double back if he started to get a little further away from me. I wanted to take this a step further and see how civilian NPCs work during an emergency. So after ignoring crime to people watch for an hour, I finally decided to visit the site of a crime to do more people watching. It seems like there's a certain radius centered at the scene of the crime from which the pedestrians will run in whatever direction is easiest for them to get the hell away. Once they pass that radius, they calm down and they start their usual meandering. However, if that meandering brings them back into the radius, they'll freak out again and run back outside of the danger zone. They'll just rinse and repeat that. To my absolute delight, Yuriko Watanabe, the vigilante known as Wraith, was also at the scene of this crime. So this was like a win-win for me. I was able to see how these NPCs are going to act as well. We all know that Yuriko is a bloodthirsty monster capable of unspeakable things, and that it is on site with her for the enemies. However, if you are able to team up with her without aggroing the enemies, she will just follow you while maintaining an aggressive stance. Even if you leave the same danger circle that the civilians are affected by, your ally will continue to follow you. By the way, the reason I keep looking behind me is because I didn't dare let her out of my sight because I was afraid that she'd get sick of my pacifist shit and leave. But no, the way this game works is once you engage in an entanglement with criminals and then get too far away, your character will say something like, "Oh, the other Spider-Man can handle this." And once you do that, your ally just seemingly gets snapped by Thanos. That's the simplest way I can put it. She just ceased to exist at that point. Don't get me wrong here, this video is not supposed to criticize the development or the quality of Spider-Man 2. Like I said exactly 11 minutes and 14 seconds ago, I didn't expect the NPCs to be as sophisticated as Red Dead Redemption 2's. I just wanted to take the civilians that are supposed to be basically set dressing and examine them under a microscope. For fun. I do appreciate the small little moments programmed into the game here and there, like how Spider-Man will take time out of his day to help a guy fetch his keys, or free a guy stuck suspended in a porta potty, and I appreciate that there are some genuinely funny NPC conversations. They do enough to breathe some synthetic life into the civilians so that while playing the game as intended, you still have little moments here and there that remind you at the end of the day, you are still the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you for the privilege of your time. This has been very fulfilling for me, and I hope it was for you. And if you thought so, maybe consider subscribing and watching another video of mine. My name is freaking Nick, and I will catch you guys on the next one.